Hello everyone, welcome back to Viti Patshala. And now we will be doing the fifth and the last chapter of the ninth class, and that is the migration. We would be completing this chapter, and the ninth class would be completed your ninth class. So far we have completed the sixth class economics, seventh class economics, eighth class economics, and today we have completed the ninth class economics also. So the classes which are left, so these are the 10th we will be doing on the Monday. Then the 11th would be a major portion, and the 12th class also. Now, to understand the concept of the migration, so learning objectives, what are the learning objectives? The learning objectives are to understand the concept of the migration. So, the RK about the law excellence, I have done the videos. The videos are available. So law excellence booklet I have covered, and I am trying to cover that. But the thing is that are available only in the Hindi. Means Hindi is the language, so you can refer those videos. So video for the economics is available, the complete video of approx 6 to 7 hours. I have completed that booklet, so that you will be find on my channel, that is available. Now next comes is to learn about the extent of the migration in the India and Tamil Nadu we are living. We are not concerned with that. To analyze the factors underlying the migration. Now let's start with the introduction, the concept of the migration. What do you mean by the migration? Now, concept of the migration. In any settlement, village, or the town, change in the population occurs due to the birth, death, and the migration. Now, of these three components of the population, they change. Birth and the death is clearly identifiable event, while the migration poses the maximum amount of the problem with regard to its definition and the measurement. Now, as almost everyone keeps moving most of the time, now it is not easy to define which of these move have classified as the migratory move. So, इनमें से किसको migratory move कहा जाएगा? It is not clear. Now, in the census of the India, migration is enumerated on the two bases. So migration is enumerated in on the basis of two things. That is, the one is the place of the birth, other is the place of the residence. Now, place of birth, if the place of the birth is different from the place of the enumeration, that is the known as the lifetime migrant. Now, second comes is the place of the residence. If the place of the last residence is different from the place of the enumeration, is known as the migrant by place of the last residence. Now, next comes the topic that we will be going to start is the extent of the migration in the India. Now, in India, the census 2011 enumerated a total population of the 121 crore, of which 45 crore people were reported as the migrants. Now, the approx 40% of the people they have migrated according to the definition of the place of the last residence. Now, similarly, in Tamil Nadu, 7.2 crore people, 3.13 crore people were counted as the migrant in the 2011. So these lines are not important for your UPSC exam. That is, the percentage of the migrant was the 37% in the country. Now, generally, one tends to associate the migration with the urban areas. However, we find that the migration that in the India as well as in Tamil Nadu, the extent of the migration is much higher in the rural areas compared to the urban areas. In 2011, 37% of the population are counted as the migrant in the rural areas, while the corresponding percentage in the urban India is 27%. Now, in Tamil Nadu, migrants account for the 41% in the rural area and 35% in the urban area in 2011. Now, that is the mobility of the population in rural areas is greater than the urban areas. Now, furthermore, the one usually associate the mobility with the males rather than the females. However, an examination of the data it clearly indicates that a larger proportion of the females are reported by the to be migrant as compared to the males. In the country as a whole, 53% are the female migrant, while the 20% are the male migrant in the 2011. Now, why is there such a large percentage of the migration among the women? Now, 70% in the India. Now, as the reason for the migration of the females is the marriage and the movement associated with the marriage appear to be a major factor responsible for the women mobility in India. Now, movement related to the woman and the employment, it appears to be the driving force of the migration among the men's. Now, of all the male migrant in the India, 28% report work as the major reason for their migration in 2011. Now, to sum up, we can say that incidence of the migrant is higher in the rural areas and the larger among the women. Now, during the colonial period, so this is about the Tamil Nadu. We are not concerned about this. So this is also about the Tamil Nadu. We are not concerned about this. So you don't have to read these datas because they are only useful for the Tamil Nadu exams only. Much of the this chapter it composed of the Tamil Nadu itself. Now next comes as the factor underlying the migration. Now the extent and the nature of the migration in any society is basically determined by the nature of the development process experienced by the society. Now, that is the type of the and the scale of the development achieved by the agricultural and the industrial sectors in an economy will determine the migratory patterns. In India and Tamil Nadu, though the agriculture and the industrial sectors have grown over the years, inequality still exists in the asset and the income distribution. Endemic poverty continues to be a major problem. So, what is the problem? Endemic poverty. It is the and the growth process have also created these spatial inequalities by leading to the enclaves of the growth. The migration pattern observed in a developed society such as ours is correspond to these inequalities, economic, social, and the spatial, etc., created by the development processes. Now, therefore, any migrant stream would consist of the heterogeneous substream. For example, if we consider the rural urban migrant stream, it would comprise of a rural rich and the rural poor, each with its own reason and motivation for migration, the mode of the migration. The largest migration corridor in the world is in 2010 was the Mexico USA. The Arctic tern has the longest migration distance of any bird in the world. So remember that also for the factual basis. The outcome of the consequences of the migration. The poorer section of the population migrate as a survival strategy in response to the distressing condition in the rural areas. Migrant from the better off sections migrate to improve their living standard. Further, there would be a tendency for the migrants to coverage on the enclaves of the growth either in the urban areas or in the rural areas. The pattern of the migration is very complex, comprising of a number of the streams. Now, rural to the rural, rural to the urban, urban to the rural, and urban to the urban. Short, medium, and the long distance migration streams. Long term stable migration and the short term circulatory type of the movement. Each of these streams would consist of the different types of the migrants. from different social classes. Now, each with its own reasons for the migration. The extent and the nature of these migrant streams would essentially depend upon. So, ये depend किस पर करता है? Pressure and the aspirations experienced by the people at the origin of the migration. Then the constraint imposed on the mobility of the origin of the migration. Then opportunity of the destination and the availability of the information. So you will see that the people will migrate more to the towards the Bangalore, Chennai, Mumbai, Kolkata, and Delhi. And the cost of the migration. Now, what are the migration policies? Now, policies to address the problem of the migration is developing countries like the India is essential. Aim at the following. Now, first, to reduce the volume of the migration. Now, as a large number part of the migration is reflected of the poverty and the insecurity faced by the large sections of the rural people, the focus of the intervention has to be in rural areas. Rural development policies to reduce poverty and insecurity would be essential to reduce the rate of the migration. Now, for this migration chapter, the important thing is you have to do one thing, that current affairs. So you have to refer the current issues which are related to the migration for the your GS3 paper, mains paper. Now, to next comes is your to redirect the migration stream. Redirection of the migrant streams away from the big metropolitan city is a desirable policy option. Now, this policy can help in reducing the spatial inequalities by suitable strategies such as developing a more dispersed pattern of the urbanization. So, with this, we have completed the part of the geography, your economics. So, economics has been completed. Ninth class completed. 10th class we will see on Monday.